Добро вечер, почитувани слушатели на нашиот подкаст. На кој што рековме дека ќе му го смениме името наскоро. Ова е подкаст познат како Naked Lunch, гол ручек, кој што значи веќе традиционално оди во рамките на Bookstar Festivalот, фестивал на европската литература, кој што се повеќе и повеќе со секој измината година носи се подобри и подобри имиња. И мислам дека сериозно се етаблира како навистина европски фестивал на литературата, иако покрај оние европски писатели кои што некои од нив се трендовски, некои се веќе славни со години наназад, сепак има и огромен број на балкански писатели од соседството со кои што комуницираме и контактираме. Се чини дека организаторот на овој бук фестивал, издавачката куќа Antolog, успева да го опипа пулсот и на читателите, како и делата на писателите и уме навистина да направи една добра синергија на фестивалот, каде што преку разноразни разговори, промоции, работилници, преку конференции успева навистина да ја приближи европската литература и да им овозможи на македонските писатели, на македонските критичари да станат многу подобри во својата работа. Денешниот последен подкаст ми е особено драг затоа што иако со Ballsor се запознавме пред само неколку дена, успеавме за многу кратко време значи да поразговараме, да се сближиме и навистина овој подкаст ќе биде многу далеку од едно официјално представување на некој писател, затоа што веќе разменивме многу и мислења и предлози за читање, поразговаравме за животот, за случувањата во нашите земји и навистина мислам дека тука на Балканот сите сме некако споени на еден или на друг начин и најчесто и фала Богу да остане така на креативен, на похуман начин подалеку од сите оние работи кои што ги знаеме за Балканот, нели, како буре, барут и така натаму. Мирдита Ballsor,
Мирдита за три Dushko.
Шоку Hoxha, it would be better. Сие?
Мир, фалемдерит. You say any?
Мир. We are here with the festival, our last day, so I think that almost everyone is struggling with the energy, but I think that people are having really nice time. I hope that you are having also nice time here. Yes. This is your first time in Macedonia as a writer, I suppose? As
a writer, this is the second time. I was here for the first time as a guest to the writer Dushko Krstevski. It was a Balkan project. There was from each ex-republic of ex-Yugoslavia, there was a writer meeting a writer in Kosovo. One from Bosnia, one from Serbia, one from Montenegro, and one from Macedonia. He came to Pristina. Dushko Krstevski was my guest in Pristina for a week, and then I came to Skopje as a guest to Dushko Krstevski. And we wrote, each of us, an essay about the cities we visited. Respectively, I wrote an essay about Skopje.
It happened when? 10 years ago? Or?
Around 10 years ago.
So the city was not built in this manner. It was
just started to be built.
Did you had impression that you are actually visiting a totally different town when you went? At least for the center of the town.
Matter of fact, I had an impression that something was kind of wanting to say something to me, but in my inner self, intuitively, I was ignoring it. I don't know why. I was ignoring it. At the end of the day, I really made efforts to visualize and see what was going on, and I saw that there was a major development, which I had called it in previous interviews an interesting development. Not necessarily a beautiful or important or positive development, but a very interesting development.
Did you have the opportunity to visit both the old part of Skopje, the Charshia, and the center? So did you find them like two different cultures as clashing somewhere, or they can be in a some sort of harmony? As an architecture, as a food.
I want to explain this phenomenon that happened to me one of the nights, and but I don't want to sound political, and though I like to be misunderstood, which I think helps thinking people, makes people think when something is misunderstood. I was walking down towards Frosina Cinema, coming for a discussion with Alex Macedonia.
Alexander Macedonia, da.
And I was walking through the brand new Athens, as I called it, these new buildings. Brand new old Athens, Greek Athens. All of a sudden, there was azan being called from the other side. Azan from the mosque. The call for the prayer. And in a way, it was penetrating all through this other side. And I was all of a sudden, inside of a phenomena where, in my opinion, I think, how should I say it that it doesn't sound political, that, it is whatever happens in if I may call it the Albanian part of Skopje, happens only there, disconnected and unrelated to the other side. Whatever happens on this side happens only in this side, unrelated to the other side.
So you think that they are like existing as a parallel universes or something?
This is exactly what I said in my essay 10 years ago when I wrote about Skopje. Parallel universes.
You have studied English literature and American literature, right?
Yes, and language.
Did you had influence from for your writing? Did you had influence from the American literature, or you want to consider yourself that you have a Balkan language and style?
No, I would say I was deeply influenced by modernist movement of English literature and contemporary American literature. Mostly. Balkan literature, I'm not sure I can say I know it. I'm not sure I can say I know it. I haven't read so much Balkan literature.
Also, it says in your biography that you have worked with humanitarian and international development. Was it something like an NGO work, something like that, or?
It was from the most emergent level, which is emergency level, working in Kosovo, and I worked in Macedonia too for 3 months during the bombing in Kosovo.
So it was with the refugees, I suppose,
yes,
with
yes.
all those.
I worked in Skopje, Gostivar, Struga, Ohrid, and so on. These cities with international organizations. Now that you mention it, I would like to repeat it from the last time I was here. In discussion with the writer Dushko Krstevski, we came to a conclusion that we had a unique, similar experience, Skopje and whole Kosovo. When the earthquake happened in Skopje, the disaster. 1963, the whole world mobilized and solidarized to build the new Skopje. Is that right?
That's true.
The same happened in Kosovo. After the bombing stopped in 1999, the whole world mobilized, solidarized to help build Kosovo, which is unique in the world, and it's similar in two neighbors, in neighboring countries.
Infrastructure, food, medical help, medics, everything.
Everything. You know what makes it more unique? That we ignore it, that we forget it. This help we have received, both Skopje and Kosovo. We forget it, or
every year on our anniversary of the earthquake, there is like a motto, like a credo that says Skopje remembers, Skopje remembers. Yeah. But remembers the tragedy. But if you ask an ordinary person, like, could you say like what countries help or how come they help? Yes. I don't think that they will be, more informed, precise, informed.
Conscious.
Yeah, who gave, let's say, trucks, which garrison was helping taking people out of the ruins, or who was the medical group of nurses who gave IV or
the same is
or bandages.
It is such a relatively short period of time, and people are forgetting. Moreover, the internationals are being seen more and more as a necessary evil, matter of fact.
Yeah, people are scared here in the Balkans. We still have that thing from the ex-socialist country that if we have a foreign person here, that he wants to, trick us, abuse us, maybe convert us in something.
Us.
I think that people, whenever they see some foreign donations, at least it used to be like 20 years ago, they find it as an awkward way of trying to assimilate people. I mean, McDonald's can assimilate people more than foreign help or foreign literature.
Yes.
This is like a great sequel, actually great prequel for my next question, because you mentioned Kosovo during the war. You are born 1975.
Yes.
I would like to take you back around the early 80s and maybe the late 80s. Could you tell me about I need to create an image, imagology about Kosovo, because usually Kosovo is always related with the crisis and the war, but during the 80s, how would you describe a day of an ordinary Albanian boy at 7, 8 or maybe 12 years old going to school in Pristina?
May I take my time in answering this question? I will take two examples, which is the ordinary routine of a child, infantile view upon the world, but quite in order, in fact, quite unusual, quite extraordinary. The first one is one of my first conscious memories, is me looking from the balcony. I was living on the 12th floor of we call this skyscraper Solitaire, and seeing Serbian police beating Albanian students, which was the demonstrations of 1981.
Was it Azem Vlasi, the crisis at that time, right?
No, prior to Azem Vlasi.
Prior to that time.
When Albanians rose up to ask to become a republic, to make Kosovo a republic
not just autonomic part of Serbia.
Yes. And I remember blood all over the parking lot. I remember our apartment full of students who were escaping from police. It was a deep crisis, dark times, and I was only 5.5 years old. That is one of my first memories, and conscious memories. The other one that I would like to illustrate my routine as a child is seeing Grace Jones, a Grace Jones video on TV, and watching it together with my grandmother, who had Turkish origin, and which means that I have also so-called percentage of Turkish origin myself. That is my mother's mother. Watching Grace Jones and talking about her, because in the video, she was like symbolizing a drum, and a white guy was drumming her on the back in this video. Mm-hmm. And we were wondering,
was that slave to the rhythm, if I'm not mistaken?
Exactly, exactly, slave to the rhythm. And we were wondering, who is the colonialist and who is the racist?
Your grandmother was, obviously,
And
I thought that you will say that she was looking at Grace Jones' haircut and said, like, okay, is this a male or female? A conservative point of view.
But the thing was that she was claiming that it is not the white man, in her words, it is not the white man's fault for beating her. She was saying beating her, but it's her fault for letting him beat him. It was her world, and I grew up with that kind of
almost always philosophy. It's a slave's fault that there is a slave owner.
Yes.
I mean, even our rebellions used to say that 130, 40 years ago when they were uprising against the Ottoman Empire.
Yeah. And it was the times when TV was entering Albanians' houses and households.
No, it was 80s, right?
70s, second part of 70s, beginning of 80s.
Because that was also incorporated in my question. Like, I want to know Ballsor as a child, when he put on the stereo, what hit was on. If he opened the fridge, what food was in. When he will go out, would he play football with his friends or go somewhere near, I don't know, like a small shop and buy candies, It's a childhood of a neighbor that I haven't watched it on TVs. We have enough Bulgarian movies about the 80s and the 70s, enough Serbian movies about the 70s and the 80s, Macedonian movies, but somehow Kosovo was always shown, even either through some let's see some old craftsmen in Kosovo when they're producing boots, or maybe some shepherd, or something like that, but nobody explained how the people in Pristina lived during the 80s and in the 90s. What was their childhood? So we lack an image about Kosovo in the 80s, because it's really bad, and it's really pity that in the Balkans, when you mention Kosovo, you think about trucks full of refugees crying, haven't showered in a while because they were passing the border and crying. Families try to unite, or whoever was the lucky one to have relatives in Macedonia, so they can be so they can get at least a decent bed to sleep. It's really bad if that is our thing. If I like to remember about, Dushko, rock bands from Serbia, from Croatia, from Slovenia, from Bulgaria, you can different styles. Nobody in Macedonia knows Albanian band. I heard through a documentary, from Kosovo, Cute Babulja.
Cute Babulja.
Cute Babulja. Sorry, I thought it was.
But that is after 2000.
Yes, and they are playing music that, if you don't know, that is Albanian language. The production, the sound was so clear, well done in the studio. You can put that band on a indie rock and reggae festival, and they will kill it.
It is even more interesting that their production is made and done in Skopje.
Oh, really?
Most of it.
I didn't
know of the music.
But
in Skopje,
nobody knew this one. Is there a Kosovo metal band? Is there a Kosovo poetry club that, writes about everyday common things?
Your questions show exactly how alien we were in Yugoslavia.
Yeah, I agree with that. I totally agree with it.
And we are the first neighbors. We knew about Lebisol, particularly because of the song with the Albanian with the white hat, with Pris, with a video.
Oh yeah, but
Skopje.
But you see,
Skopje.
It was done in a pejorative way to show the Albanian in the video.
Of course, but we liked it.
I think that somebody told me that actually it's an actor who is playing Albanian, a Macedonian actor who is playing Albanian. I don't think that he's a native Albanian.
But anyway, I think that was a very good sign for what Macedonian mentality could allow. It was a great thing, in my opinion, because we always lived in tragedies, all of Balkans. And those tragedies made us forever to live within our defense or instinctive mechanisms, protective from everyone and the whole world. And that's why I'm saying that the Macedonian mentality under its own defense mechanism, this actor playing an Albanian was all that it could allow at that time.
It's not fair, but it's not fair.
It's not fair.
Nobody mentioned that, I don't know, Macedonian rebellions together with Hasan Bey Pristina, they had a rebellion there. They have a movement during the 20s and it was during the 20s in Ohrid Debar rebellion. Nobody mentioned this. Okay, it's a history, not to enter the history as everybody says, but I agree that the picture was a little bit you don't like to know about this, and you cannot, I don't know, from all the Yugoslavian song just mention, I don't know, Roka Mandoline as a Bijelo Dugme song.
Yes.
Let's say my first I don't know, contact with Kosovo as a name was we went with my parents and my brother via bus from Skopje to Tivat, to Montenegro. And I know that my mother said, okay, we will travel through Kosovo. Dushko and Vladimir, me and my brother, they'll be sleeping. I hope that everything will be great. Mom, why should because you are passing through Kosovo. So you go with a bus at night from Kosovo during the 88, 89, it was maybe. It was even 90s.
89 was, but that was, your mother was right about.
Yeah, but from my perspective as a little boy, like an innocent boy who doesn't know about nationalism and everything, okay, why are can we go then from so in my mind is like, okay, now we are entering, because I was reading fairy tales, I watched cartoons, okay, we are entering Kosovo, okay, are we entering a dark wood, so something scary will show up, that was a
imagination,
my imagination,
motivated imagination by
but then after
carefulness,
and after it, when I was working with my NGOs and we have contact, I was working mainly Balkans. I went several times in Tirana and Duras and Kruja, also in Niš, the Balkan region mainly. So when I met a lot of NGOs and people who are working like me from Kosovo, now I have a different picture. You're listening to metal, great. Okay, what kind of beer do you like here? A friend from Kosovo, we spent Easter 12 years ago in Duras. And this guy, Fatos Mustafa, I think that I told you several days before during the lunch, he said, today it's your holiday, like Easter, yes. And some people gave us eggs at that time, and he said, could you give me an egg? It will mean a lot to me. Like, no problem. here, like let's break, just to show you how it's done, how we are playing break the eggs and everything. And he went and he bought me a bottle of Skanderbeg cognac because he wanted me to have this as a sort of present. So that was my first actual contact, like exchanging something with a person. So it was.
May I pose a question here for both of us? Why is this lack of knowledge about Kosovar Albanians on your side?
On my side?
Yes. Why was it happening?
We didn't travel too much, I think, during the 90s. Previously, we only went... Previously the 80s, we went to the Yugoslavian coast, maybe. Dubrovnik, Budva, Makarska, Herceg Novi.
Greece?
No, Greece not that much. Actually, I have been in Greece just 2 times in life. Because these last 20 years I'm traveling more to Bulgaria. I work with translation and everything. I have a lot of friends there. I don't know, I think it's politics. It wasn't part of my family to kind of divide people. Actually, I kind of understood the concept what is Albanian as a nationality when I was actually 12, 13, and I first heard it when I was just 10. Before that it didn't have any meaning for me. I think it was politics. It was mainly, I don't know, Yugoslavia's way of dealing with things.
With black holes, I would call it.
Well, black
or
holes.
Unresolvable parts of Yugoslavia.
But definitely, we don't know was there a Kosovo cinematography? Were there Kosovo directors? Was there, I don't know, like I know that a lot of people from Kosovo came to Skopje to the Mother Teresa complex of public hospital, because they didn't have a public hospital at that time during the 80s, or maybe it wasn't that good.
But it was good, but maybe Skopje's hospital was more equipped. Maybe
because of that. In your stories, the first stories are a little bit more positive ones, but then as you are going to the end, they are getting a little bit more grayish and darkened. Could you tell me why is that? Because I can see some sort of a binary in your stories. Like white and black, peace and not war, but I will say a trembling.
Post-war.
It's they are kind of divided
between the 2 parts of the book, 2 parts of the story. My experience when I reached the days of post-war, thinking, trying to recollect what happened, I was seeing my life as a film cut through in the middle, as they used to do it in the cinemas during ex-Yugoslavia when we were children. When the guy who was playing the movie in the cinema, he would cut short the movie so he could go home earlier.
So everybody was, woo, come on, Krojac, Schneider, woo!
And my life was something like that. The part when the war happened, it was the point where my life had been cut off in 2 parts, before the war and after the war. Thinking about it, the more I was experiencing the post-war, the more disintegrated we were. It seemed to me. It was to me. It was it was I myself disintegrated. And that was the idea, to show this movie cut through in the middle of it.
So all the people who read the book, they are actually going through the first stories much easier.
Which is realistic.
And then and then you are
Then it
entering,
gets
somewhere metaphysics.
Yes.
They don't have a grotesque in that, like a school way of knowing a grotesque, but they have a lot of things when you get more tensed when you're reading them and like, okay, what's going on? Did they lose something? Let's go back, let's see. And it's really starting to be really strong and strong and strong. It's almost like reading a David Lynch story.
Yes.
It goes smooth, and at the end, I think that is working. It's showing maybe like you said, the disintegration of the characters and of the writer itself, but also the story. It wants to give a message that you are going at the end. It's okay for you to be more paranoid, to be more scared, to be more frustrated even. So it's actually hitting some sort of nerves, as we say in our sensations.
Yes, I would confirm your impression from reading it by an example from one of the stories where one of the characters is afraid of something. I don't want to disclose it. Is afraid of something and goes to the garage, underground garage where his car is, and he gets inside of it and he turns it on, and he just wants to listen to the sound of a car, his own car, the sound of it, and he thinks, what is a mother? What is a father? And this is all happening after the war. What is a mother? What is a father? What are friends? What are children? What is home? When a dog could easily bite one of the electricity cables and burn the whole house.
Yeah, we can.
What are they?
Kurzschluss, and everything will go in flames.
And I would illustrate all this impression that I wanted to give through this example. That once you go through such a situation, you realize what was Nietzsche talking about in existentialism, Kierkegaard, Heidegger, and all others, Dostoevsky and all others.
So if you combined Kosovo politic situation with nihilism and existentialism, you have a recipe for, going mad. Luckily, you're still keeping on the good side.
In my opinion, that's not politics. As a matter of fact, existentialism, essential, right to the bone and through the bone, existentialism and naked existentialism. And I think, once you go through war, nothing really matters. Nothing really matters because everything can be lost.
You don't take things for granted.
No, you don't take them anymore for granted. What you have, you are not sure if the table you own, as I say in one of the stories, is yours, or in fact, if the table owns you. You are not sure. Who owns whom? It is such a crisis, crater, that opens up the angst and total darkness, and that kind of disintegrates the so-called public world that Kierkegaard called it.
So did you spend those years of crisis? Did the reading help you?
Yes. Yes.
Music help you somehow?
Matter of fact, art, particularly music, movies, and books were really helpful. and particularly Heinrich Bell.
Uh-huh.
He wrote about post-war Germany. I don't mean to say that I felt guilty like Germans felt after the post-Second World War, but I could sense that there were other people who had experienced post-war disintegration or depression or anxiety, angst, however you want to call it. And I found kind of solidarity and kind of mirror and reflection of such a situation.
Mm-hmm. Is there any Albanian author that kind of that you can say that you like, not maybe worship, but that you like, that you would like to write like him? You have your unique style. You said that it was influenced a little bit from the English literature, from the American literature, but precisely somebody that, we all as readers have that point when we are writing something, and when we are reading something from our national literature, we would say like, if I didn't write my own way, I would like to write like this guy.
Yeah. But
because I know that Majarovsky also mentioned that he doesn't know any other Albanian author besides you and Ismail Kadare. Yeah. Ismail Kadare is one of the things that you connect with.
Yes.
With Kosovo is Ismail Kadare.
My issue when you make this question is that I was so attached to Ismail Kadare's literature that nothing else really mattered.
Mm-hmm.
It was one of the oevers that helped me survive the crisis after the war. Ismail Kadare's oeuvre. So yes, I was influenced. I read it. I have a study on several Kadare's books.
So it is a study like his life and his work and everything?
No, only several of his novels.
Oh, I think that should be published. I mean, this would be a good
introduction.
And I think that a great project even for, I don't know, not just Macedonian readers but Albanians from Macedonia who are readers and who do not know anything about Kadare.
Yeah, it's an interesting idea.
I think that we should tell Žarko about this.
Yes.
Because the first novel I had it at home, translated in Macedonia, The General of the Dead Army.
Yes.
Generalът на мъртвата войска. I read it when I was in last year of high school and first year maybe at the university, and at that time we were reading everything, even though we didn't understand. It was, you need to have amount of things that you have read. Mm-hmm. So if somebody says like, have you read this guy, this guy? It's just like, I don't know, listening to a bunch of bands, you don't even pay attention. So if you tell me now, I don't think that I would remember something. I know that it was raining and somebody went to pay a respect to some soldiers, or maybe to take something from those soldiers. It's just that I never returned to that. But Broken April, I read it in English. It was a gift from a former Albanian girlfriend of mine. And when I read it, it kind of helped me to go then on internet and search for the codex of
Besa and Canon.
Dukadin Lega and the Canon. So what is this custom? And I kind of remember it more. I mean, line to line. I remember how the character was left with his several days, maybe a month, that he can do whatever he wants, and then after that he will be hunted down. And then I said, I need to find and read this. And unfortunately, I think that I will have to read it in English, because my Albanian is not that good for reading even a fable or a fairy tale. And I don't think that a lot of things are translated in Macedonian. I hope I'm wrong.
Today I heard that there are 7 Ismail Kadare's
You cannot
novels translated in Macedonian.
maybe.
But maybe since a long period of time.
Well, I don't know. When we go to our book fairs, I don't see a lot of things,
Maybe they are older and they have been sold out of
and
print.
nobody reprinted them.
Yeah. But
I would definitely buy it if I see like a Skrčeni od April or Broken April staying on the on the book fair. What kind of person as a writer is Ismail Kadare?
as a writer, well,
If you have to put him in some category, or maybe it's unthankful thing to do, but maybe compare it with somebody, put him in the same
I
band.
wouldn't like to compare Ismail Kadare. It's his Uber is so important to me, not only in the field of literature and my writing, but also in the field of my let me call it healing from the post-war crisis, because I went through it by reading Kadare, and I wouldn't want to compare him with anyone else, but I would take an example of his novel Kronik Migur, which is Chronicle on Stone, translated in English. It is a novel, written in the 70s, about his hometown, childhood place where he lived, Gjirokastër, and it is his alter ego of infantility, his own infantility. And there's a sentence, a beautiful sentence, and it's one of the funniest books you will ever read if you read it. And it says, our city, my city, is a city where when drunken people fall from drunkenness, they fall on top of roofs of other houses. The city is so steep.
Yeah, it's just like a hill,
that-
right? I
yes.
suppose, yeah.
So when you fall down from in a street, on one side you fall on the roof of a house. It's so steep. And there are, magical things there that I like. It is true. There is a street called Sokokui Tomorove, which is the mahala or the street of the crazy people. It's so funny, beautiful, and yet painful.
So he was born there and
In Gjirokastër.
yeah,
Yes.
but he spent most of his life in Pristina before.
In Albania.
In Albania.
In Albania, yes. And then from 90s he moved to Paris.
Yeah, as a
Yes, he asked for an exile in France, and he lived in Paris. But now he's back in Albania.
one of my favorite Albanian authors from Macedonia is Luan Starova. He's writing all the time. It's just like, even though it's like more than 20 books, it's just like one big chronicle of his family living in Albania. Actually, his family during the 1943 they came from Podgradec to first Tetovo, I think, and then maybe Skopje. Yeah, and he used to be our ambassador in France, and he is the best scholar, one of the best scholars about French and Italian literature, but more like the French and also the Albanian literature. Mainly, most of the poets, especially younger one, I have more communication with them. But definitely, I think that Ismail Kadare, I hope that I'm wrong, that he's translated in Macedonia. I hope that a reprint will be possible, so we can get more like this imagery about Albania in the Balkans. What about your next work, next plans? Do you work on some sketches about some?
I have a novel of mine is in print in one of the major publishing houses in Albania. It is a novel in short stories about my kind of biographical childhood view upon the world. And it's a wonder of a child who sees Grace Jones on TV and wonders who is here, because there is in Albanian derived from Italian language, there is a word shko, which means serve, but it is pejorative, as you said, negative. Shko.
Shkar, it means what?
Shko, it means it is used to name Serbs, but in a negative sound.
In a negative, yeah. In a
and the child wonders who is Shko here. Are the Serbs or some Albanians too? Are they also Shko too? It's a sort of nemesis of this child as a character.
It's a huge novel.
No, it's a normal one. 150 pages.
It covers a lot of things like those scenes from your.
Yes. It covers lots of scenes. It starts by a Borgesian sort of style introduction, and it ends up with wondering what is a nation with a mission, whereby there is an example of a ex-KLA soldier who is ill from cancer, dying, with nobody's help.
Do you also write in English or just in Albanian? Because nobody can say it better in his own language.
I think I have tried to write in English. I'm very good in English writing, but I think to write literature, it's a much higher culture and much higher language than the ordinary language, and so you need to either be a native English speaker or to have lived for years in an English-speaking.
Do you think that Kundera learned French that good so he can write?
But he lives there since 70s.
Yeah, but still, I mean, even when he goes there, he writes his first 3 or 4 novels, I think, in Czech, and then he switches to French.
Yes.
But do you think that he sometimes needs words? He's kind of in search for words. There.
I have read him in English, but to me he is completely clear in his.
Or let's say Nabokov or Joseph Brodsky. They were Russian dissidents in the United States, and they also. After writing in Russian, they also start writing in English.
Foreign languages.
Yeah. Do you think that it's possible, even after living for 40 years, to know all the nuances in the?
I think so. Yes, I think so. It is possible, and matter of fact, one of my greatest influences is Polish origin writer in England. Joseph
Conrad.
Heart
of Darkness. Yeah.
Heart of Darkness and other authors. And he was Polish and he migrated to England. But he's one of the most important English writers. And his native language is Polish.
Yeah, but that's a good question for some future podcast, I think. Окей, faleminderit shumë, Ballsor.
Faleminderit edhe ty Dushko, faleminderit shumë për ftesën edhe për pyetjet shumë interesante.
Përse, ne jemi në festival Bookstar 2021, ne jemi këtu se nadevам дека ако имате прашања секогаш ќе има, значи под YouTube ќе има место за коментари и ќе можеме, значи, да разговараме малку повеќе и да можеме да си поставуваме прашања и да се обидеме да ги срушиме овие бариери што постојат меѓу нас. Ви благодарам на сите. Ова е последниот подкаст од овој фестивал. Се слушаме во следна прилика.